Hello, in this video we will understand about the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes. We will understand about the movement and balance, the pathway of the reflex and upper and lower motor neurons. So the upper motor neuron is named so because the cell originate in the upper part of the central nervous system, brain, and regulate the activity of lower motor neurons. Remember, is a true motor neuron. True motor neuron after the upper motor neuron, but upper motor neuron is not true motor neuron. But we can name. So in this way, let's begin to understand the several cross section of the brain to understand the several part of the brain. The cross section here. This is basically is the upper part is the cerebrum. Cerebrum is the primary motor cortex, is basically used for the specific area of the body for movement, while the midbrain and this is the pons and the cerebellum as well as medulla oblongata, and this is the cervical spinal cord and the lumbar spinal cord. Let's here is the sensory input like touch, pressure, alert, balance and desire on the several part of the body, which that will trigger the movement as a response. So for example, the sensory input will apply to the brain, and in this way the two motor neurons left and right, which that is the primary pyramidal cells, upper motor neuron. This is the primary pyramidal cells are present. In this way the output will begin, and this is the primary pyramidal pathway will occur, the upper motor neuron. In this way it will go down to the midbrain, and in this way the cerebral peduncle which that allow to move into the midbrain to the cerebellum. Cerebellum basically is contain a neuron, the ventral corticospinal tract. This ventral corticospinal tract is the red color neuron is showing, which that go and the cervical spinal cord response, for example hand movement, and this is basically the blue color neurons will go further descending, and the ventral corticospinal tract is here, and this is the pyramids which that allow to red neuron is the upper motor neuron will go descending, and the here is the decussation of pyramids. Decussation of pyramids which that is allowed to blue color is the neuron will go down further, will allow to move the muscle. Here is the cervical spinal cord allow to hand moves, while down here is the skeletal muscle, the balance for example. On the other hand, the somatic motor neurons is the lower motor neuron is the true motor neuron after the interneuron will allow, because it is contain neuromuscular junction for the depolarization of the skeletal muscle for movement. So this is the pyramidal, lateral and ventral cortical pathway, remember. This is the pyramidal, lateral and ventral cortical pathway, because of pyramidal cells involved. Anyhow, let's begin to understand the summarization, how it can possible. The upper motor neuron originate in the gray matter of the brain, and this gray matter of the brain will lead to allow the axonal depolarization to create the nerve impulse, and this nerve impulse, the impulse for moves down a descending tract of spinal cord. So the descending tract of spinal cord will lead to synapse with lower motor neuron. After the lower motor neuron, it will innervation with muscle for or muscle or glands of the body for give the response. So in this video we are understanding only the muscle, so remember we are just understanding on the muscle and give the response. What is the response? Let's begin to understand the different type of response, because we are understanding about the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes. The response is upper motor neuron from the cerebral cortex are essential for the planning and execution of voluntary movements of the body as well as regulate the posture. It means as well as the balance, muscle tone, and the reflexive movement of the head and trunk. In this way, the movement of head as well as the balance and tone of the muscle for the normal function and normal posture of the body is due to the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes. The multiple reflexes will occur in the same time for continuously to the balance of the body. Let's understand about the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes, the rubrospinal tract. This rubrospinal tract is here. You can see the red nucleus are present in the midbrain. Remember, the midbrain contains red nucleus, which that allow to the rubrospinal tract to the descending upper motor neuron. This descending upper motor neurons will allow to move the nerve impulse toward the cervical spinal cord. This cervical spinal cord, which that interneuron will lead to lower motor neuron, actually the true motor neuron, will synapse with the muscle is known as the neuromuscular junction will lead to allow the 9 pair of cranial nerves in brain and head movement as well as the limb. Basically, in this we will understand the rubrospinal tract is used for the distal limb muscle movement. So remember the major important thing is that distal limb muscle movement. But the 9 pairs of cranial nerves in brain also involve is the upper part of the cervical spinal cord. But remember, let's begin to understand the reflex arc. This is the sensory neuron, the receptor during the writing. So it will be receive the signal by the pressure, alert, balance, and desire and touch will lead to move to the white matter of the spinal cord will lead to move upward the ascending neuron, the thalamus. And this is the ventral root of ganglia and dorsal root of ganglia, and this is the white matter and gray matter. So in this way, the thalamus will interact and in interneuron will transmit the signal toward the left side of the brain or cerebral cortex, which that is the primary sensory cortex. After the sensation and the cognition, interpretation will lead to upper motor neuron, which that will move the signal to the nerve impulse or depolarization to the down of the from the brain to the spinal cord, and in this the gray matter is involved for the lower motor neuron synapse. After the lower motor neuron synapse will target to the specific muscles of the hands for as a muscle action potential for the normal writing, and in this way the working and learning basically the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes regard to the learning skills which that will enhance and it will work by the response. So anyhow, let's begin to understand. In this video, we have discussed about the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes. We will understand in the next videos the pyramidal tract, the direct pathway, control precise and skilled voluntary movement. This is the pyramidal tract, and the corticospinal pathway we have discussed the limb and trunk movement. The lateral corticospinal tract is the distal part of the limb, hand and feet, and the anterior corticospinal tract movement of trunk and proximal part of the limbs, and corticobulbar pathway is used for the head movement, and the rubrospinal pathway is the distal upper limb. So the distal upper limb is involved for this. But in this video, we have discussed about the general upper and lower motor neuron reflexes. And next video, we will understand about the further classification and further understanding about the upper and lower motor neurons reflexes and the pathway for give the response. So remember, this is the upper and lower motor neuron reflexes we have discussed in this video, and we have also understand about in this video the reflex arc regard to the writing. For example, give the response. I hope you make sense about this. If you like my video, please make sure to subscribe, like, and share. And see in the next video regard to the nervous system, the central nervous system, and the reflexes. So in this video, we have discussed about the pyramidal and the cerebrospinal tract.